So yeah, hopefully he'll get that taken care of then, Bill, if it's still there, if he hasn't already done it. So he said he would be adding the Pondside Pavilion to the phase 2 layout. I don't know when we'll get it, but he said he was going to add it. So that's good news. And then as far as I know, we talked about the hardscape play area, possibly, if the fire station was going to be expanding or if they were going to be adding any pavement, could we kind of, work with that? And he said at this point, there's no plans to expand or anything like that. So that's pretty much where we're at with the questions that I'd sent over. I guess at this point, I'll open up to the committee to ask, are there any other questions that you guys want me to field with Steve after this meeting at this point? I mean, I'm sure things might come up, but while we're reviewing this particular topic, I thought I'd open it up.
Is there any sense of timing, or is there scheduling information that's come out that we have from them? So their steps
as it relates to the stuff they're working on?
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's changed as far as I know. On the next slide, I'm going to walk through all their projects, which quite frankly hasn't really changed other than the fact that they've completed the striping of the parking lot. So
I'd like to know what the COVID maintenance plan is. I know that I heard that Steve Callahan was disinfecting the equipment the day before it opened with a blower and some sort of disinfectant. I don't know if that's going to be an ongoing thing or not. And then the other question is, are they going to return the porta potties now that the playgrounds are back open? And if so, what's the plan for, disinfecting those?
Okay.
If Justin ends up staying on the committee, his company may be helpful in helping with some of these things, anything to do with cleaning, disinfecting, and so forth. At one point, I thought I'd heard him say in a text that he wanted to offer those services. I don't know whether there'd be a conflict of interest there. I don't think so, but that would be something we have to explore. But it's something to bring up if one of us gets a hold of Justin.
Okay. That's a good point. I'll ask him.
And just as a record-keeping thing, it's minor, but the term attractive nuisance is a legal term of art. And in order to denote that, it should be in quotes when it is referred to in the notes.
Okay.
Because it has specific legal implications. Otherwise, no one would think that a whole bunch of rusty stuff is attractive in any way.
Right.
Adele, what's the term again? It's something nuisance?
Yes, it's in the 5th bullet point.
Yep.
Second sentence. Attractive nuisance. And what it essentially means is some item in a public setting that would draw kids to play on it or play with it that could then cause injury.
Yeah, like pools. Pools are considered unattractive.
Correct. That's why fences are required
Fencing
around
requirements.
pools.
Yeah.
Right.
Things that invite children to get into trouble.
We don't want that. No. Okay. I took a note of that too, Adele. Thank you. All right. Anything else you can think of at this point that we'd want to kick back over to Steve and the DPW before we move on?
Oh, well, I'll ask you guys. I had down on my plan, which we can review in a future meeting again, marking the handicap parking spots. Did they do that? I just didn't think to observe that when I was up there last time.
Yeah, I believe they did. They didn't paint handicap symbols, but they put up signage.
Okay. So I'll mark that as done.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
In terms of, other than the walking track, no. And as I recall, that was going to be a year out from what I recall.
Yeah, so I mean, on that, might help if I move to this one. So these are all the projects, that DPW are involved in, I think outside the bathroom structure, but the restriping was completed, field survey was completed. Everything else is still where it was before. So nothing's really changed. Everything's still kind of delayed because of COVID and everything. I'll ask again if there are going to be, when pretty much after every meeting, I've been asking Steve, hey, are there updates to this? And I'll ask again after this meeting to see if there's anything I can provide at the next meeting or on timeline. Hopefully as, the state's reopening, businesses are reopening, we can start to move through this process, but I can only imagine that there's a huge backlog from the state being shut down. That's going to continue to slow the process of getting permits and all that. But I think, I'll ask them and see where we're at with all this. Any questions on here? I know it's not a huge update, but I thought I'd just be consistent with it and share.
No, it's good.
It's
Okay.
good.
All right, so now to the fun stuff. So this is the imagery that Steve sent me regarding the exercise equipment. And so you can see before the exercise equipment, it was almost like, it was like one piece of equipment, and then really far away was another piece of equipment, then really far away was another piece of equipment. This appears to have, groupings of equipment together, which is different than what it was before. So that's why I was surprised to see this particular layout. And then you can see here the company name is, I guess, Compan.
They're the ones who provided the black border stuff. They're the ones who also did the playground at Byam and probably Harrington.
okay.
They were one of the one of the companies that we didn't end up going with for the playground at Robertsfield. So they were a company that we talked to a lot though from that.
Okay.
I'm curious. So are we expecting, I know the previous ones were on grass. Are we expecting to have mulch pits for these?
From the imagery, it appears that way. And then if I go to the next screen, I can always toggle back and forth. But so this is, these are just kind of drawings laying out the area. So it does appear that they're going to put borders and boxes and it's going to be, I think, mulched out. I don't think it'll be a grassy area.
Do you know, are we talking about
pieces of equipment together?
Do you know what the siting expectations were for multiple?
I don't have that. I don't know. I think it might have been on a previous site plan. Bill, do you recall if this was on the original phase 2 site plan or not, where these locations were going to be?
No, it wasn't. But it looks like that there are 2 pages of design. So it looks like there's 4 different.
There are, yeah.
4 different stations.
Yep. This is the other 2 here.
Yeah.
Are these? I guess my question is: are these recommendations from them, or are these things that have been agreed on, or do we have any idea?
He didn't specify. He just said, I asked him, hey, can you share with us, the list of exercise equipment that you're considering? And this is what I got. I got these images.
So I can't read it from here, but does the call out on the upper right corner, where does that list the actual equipment, the names of the equipment?
Hold on 1 second. Are you thinking where it says not for construction?
Just underneath not for construction?
Yeah, it's not legible underneath that for us. I don't know.
No, that's just information about the company.
Okay. I mean, is it possible for us to look at these and see what the specific equipment is?
Yeah, we can go. If I go back here, this is the imagery that he sent. Now, whether it's this exact equipment, it may or may not be, but these are what appears to be like the different quadrants.
Well, those definitely do look like they agree with the schematics that are the next 2 pages. Those
right. It does, yeah. I don't know why he would just send me random pictures. I'm assuming that these are the drawings of what it is that they're planning on putting in.
So I guess I don't remember what the funding for this is being covered by.
It's covered by the $50,000 grant obtained by Senator Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that covers all the exercise stuff.
Supposed to.
Yeah, it's supposed to, yeah.
The only specifications that were really included in the master plan were that the equipment be senior friendly. And I mean, judging by the pictures that I'm seeing, it seems like it would be senior friendly. I'm seeing balancing stuff and kind of low impact stuff.
Right.
I like the fact that they've got handicap accessible equipment as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
What I'd like to be able to do is.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say what I'd like to do is to be able to go back and look at look at the individual pieces of equipment that were chosen, the names, and sort of see if there's any kind of usage guidelines for, you know, ability or whatever, just to make sure it's a good mix of what Compan makes.
Another question, do we know where this is going to be located now that it's a different layout, it's a more compact layout. Do we know where this would be placed at Roberts?
We don't at this point. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it on any drawings as far as where, you know, if we were to go here, like where are these stations going to be placed around in the field? Yeah, I mean, your guess is good. I would assume it's going to be around the walking path, but I don't know exactly where they're planning on putting them. So,
Mark, if you have the opportunity when you talk next to Steve, when he's updating their plan, maybe they could put this down and give us back a copy of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of these schematics have the names like the suspension trainer and cross trainer and step and something I can't read. And I'm on their Compans website now, and you can pretty much find all of it fairly simply. So I think we can open up information about the stuff if you want to look at the specifics. I'm on the suspension trainer one currently.
Does it give you examples of like what they are and all that stuff?
Well, currently I'm looking at the suspension trainer, which is the one you have listed on the far left, and it just says suspension training is very effective because it simultaneously increases strength, balance, flexibility, and core stability with 49 exercises. The suspension trainer is one of the most versatile pieces of exercise equipment, and blah, blah, blah. No matter what the fitness level of the user is. So,
okay. Oh, so it looks, yeah, in these schematics, it does look like, Bill, we have the names of the equipment. You're right.
And all those FAZ numbers are part numbers on their website. So I'm pretty sure that you can just go into their search function and type FAZ 101 and it just brings it right up.
So there's really no need then to go back to him and ask for a list or any of that because we have it basically.
Yeah, I think the only question we really need to go back to him is, are these solid? Are these agreed upon? Are these dreams? Are these what they're suggesting to you? I mean, I don't know if someone else here has a sense of where we're at with this, but curious if it's a done deal or if it's this is their product recommendations and they're going to make decisions afterwards.
Well, on the vein of that same line of questions, I'd be interested if they've got any idea of the timing when this would be installed, because it sounds like they would need to have the permitting completed and maybe some other things like some of the walking paths and things. I'm sure this has a dependency relationship with some of the other things.
I'd be surprised if they didn't have to do irrigation stuff before they put in.
Yeah, exactly. Any information on that in that regard?
There is not. So I'll do.
If there's anything we can get, I can start to factor into our documentation and build it up.
Sorry, I couldn't quite make out what you were saying, Barry. What?
I'm just saying this kind of information, as we collect it, we can factor it into our own documentation.
Yeah.
Right.
I would expect that these stations would be identified on the phase 2 site plan,
Yeah,
which I think he's promised to you, right?
he has.
Marcus.
Yeah. So, and I've asked him to include the pavilion on it too. So I mean, hopefully between now and the next time we meet, I'll be able to get an updated site plan that has the pavilion and then also has the workout stations.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's good that they have grouped together like this, and it's not so spread out. It'll maximize the space because there's not really that many open pieces of space to fit this stuff in. So
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how this is going to even fit with the fields and the personally in the walking track. But I thought these were on the slides. These are separate from the slides, or these aren't on the slides that you sent out?
These are new. I just got these.
Okay. So can you
I just got these
distribute?
this morning, actually. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you send them out? Because I was trying to look up part numbers and I.
Yeah, I'll send you guys all the presentation. I
Thank
literally
you.
did these probably an hour before the meeting. And then there's, yeah, so this is just the next section. So, yeah, I mean, it does. I think it looks cool. I think it's something, I think it fits in with what we're trying to do with being inclusive to all.
Yeah, I definitely think it increases the age range from teenagers to elderly who, more than just playground and
Right.
a walk. So
Yeah.
I think that's excellent.
Yep. So I guess the million-dollar question is at this point, where are they going to be positioned in the park?
And when?
And I think I'll leave it up to you all like I said, I'll send this out afterward. You can go on the website, take a look at the equipment. And I think, if you have, I guess, if you have any issues or anything like that, let me know. And I'm happy to share them with Steve. But I think at this point, I mean, looking at kind of going back to this slide here, I mean, I don't see anything that stands out and says, oh my gosh, we shouldn't have that. Unless anybody, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Anything jumping out? Anything? We should go back to Steve and DPW.
I'm not exactly a fitness
Probably
expert.
rethink this piece of equipment for this reason.
what I'd like to do is make an itemized list of these individual pieces and sort of look and see what the usability is for each one of them, and just kind of understand how they all work together, and also then look and see if there's any other pieces that weren't included that might be attractive. I don't know if there's somebody in the committee that wants to do that, or if not, I can do that. And I think that we as a committee, with that information, if there's any changes we wanted to recommend, we could make a specific recommendation for changes or approve it and bless it as it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea, Bill. If you're open to going to the website and pulling all that and kind of put it together, we can either review it together in the next meeting, or if it's something you want to send out to us via email to look at, I think that's helpful. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with reviewing it at the next meeting. So I'll pull together a list of based on this information, I'll pull together a list of the equipment, and then see what I can find in terms of, who uses it and what it's good for, and kind of how it's grouped together. And then if anybody else is interested, if they want to take a look at their catalog and see if there's anything that's not included currently, and we can discuss that at the next meeting.
The other concern that's part of our mandate would be maintenance, particularly anything with a flywheel, like the elliptical. I'd be concerned about exposure to weather.
So I'll ask Steve what the maintenance plan is for the equipment. I mean, I have to
would you
assume
mind
these are
flipping back to
designed
the
to be
color?
outside in the elements, but there's probably some sort of oiling or greasing or something like that they have to maintain. So
I'm hopeful that would be Steve Callahan's department if they're purchasing it.
right. Yep.
Can you go back to the color pictures for a second, if you don't mind?
Sure. Oops, too far. There we go. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just trying to go around their website and glance at them, and I was just trying to get a sense of what I was looking at.
Another question that, I mean, I can't believe that this company would put out equipment that didn't meet requirements, but safety is a big concern. Always, you know, you don't want younger kids to be engaged with equipment where they can get hurt. Pictures imply older people, and I assume that's what this is geared at, but I don't know if we have any requirements, if the town has any requirements from a safety standpoint, or whether the DPW has that covered for us.
Let's see what.
I don't even know if it's something we need to be worried about, but I thought I would raise the possibility of a question.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's going to be some sort of a signage that's listed around, you know, hey, this is for individuals of a certain age or ability, or, you know.
Yeah, given we can't have mulch under the trees because it might make the trees look like a play space, I'm wondering how, if these aren't supposed to be for small people, how, I don't know, how the legality of it all works out.
Yeah.
Probably because it's outside the playground area.
Oh, that's a good point, Adele. Yeah. Equipment areas. Okay.
But I'm sure the mulch is there as a similar kind of safety fall zone
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yep. I would agree with that. All right, so I got some good notes here for the exercise equipment. I'm gonna ask if he can add the location to the phase 2 site plan. Is this the final list, or is there opportunity to, you know, make any adjustments? What's the timeline on getting the equipment installed? Let's see, what's the maintenance plan and what's the safety plan for the equipment areas? And then, Bill, you're going to put together the list of equipment with details, and look at, you know, what hasn't been included. Maybe there's something we may miss. So, anything else that the committee can think about that we need to either talk about regarding the exercise equipment, or anything I need to reference with DPW?
Not in referencing, but we have a family member who happens to be a professor in exercise physiology, who has the contract with the town of, or with the city of San Francisco for fitness for elders. And if he is interested, and with permission of the committee, I will, if you send me the slides, I can then see if he's interested in going over them and other things within the catalog that might be what he thinks is a better choice given his practical knowledge in the field.
Sounds good to me, assuming
Yeah.
Steve hasn't already got a contract or something with them, which I guess I don't quite. After we identify where they're at with these, that sounds perfect to me. I just
Okay,
wouldn't
I
want
can't guarantee that he'll be interested in doing it without a fee, but
right.
I'll see.
I wouldn't want to waste his time if we find out that they've already signed a thing on
Right.
it. But other than that, since I'm happy to use other people's knowledge banks, mine is lacking in this area.
One
Yeah, I
additional
have no
question
problem with
would
it,
be,
Adele. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
one additional question would be if that's poured in place material underneath the wheelchair, or if that's the compacted asphalt. Hard to tell.
Or mulch, I guess. It could be mulch.
I assumed it was poured in place, but it could be mats, maybe. The black part underneath the
Oh, the black
wheelchairs.
part. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was looking at the whole thing. Okay, is the black.
A related question is, we want to make sure that the pictures don't represent anything that's not actually being included.
Yes.
Say again, Barry?
We want to make sure that the pictures don't present something that in the end is not included in what we obtain from them. So for example, some kind of a safety mat underneath the wheelchair or anything else. We want to make sure what we're really getting.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So I think I'll ask him if this is the final list, and then based on the renderings that you shared, is this exactly the layout and what you're basically what we're budgeted and what you're anticipating on delivering and installing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if not, and then there's any changes, or if this is just kind of examples, then I'll of course, it makes more sense for us to look at the list, come back with recommendations and all that stuff. But those are all good questions. So I'll definitely revert back to Steve on those. All right, anything else? All right. Moving right along. Okay, so now this is almost kind of a separate second agenda, just reviewing all the different projects we talked about last time. So I figured we kind of go down the list and we'll talk about any updates from the work that we talked about last time on grants and fundraising. We'll discuss the pavilion, the bathroom enclosures, the hardscape play area, the parking lots, the welcome area, and signage, which Bill, thank you for putting together, some drawings for that we can share. And then I don't know if there's anything additional we discussed on the sandbox flooding. Unfortunately, I did not have the ability to dig holes because I could not find my hole digger. So I didn't get around to doing that. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. And then also just kind of close with, some volunteer projects that are out there and see if there's anything that else we need to add. So first and foremost, let's start with the grants and fundraising. So as of right now, Adele, this is what I have. So we had the $6,000 shade grant you were looking into, but I think we missed that in March.
Correct.
The $100,000 Lowe's grant in community grant, and I believe
which is not available this year. Lowe's
Okay.
has put out a statement that they are focusing on supporting businesses impacted by COVID-19, and otherwise they are not accepting any grant applications at this time.
That makes sense.
Okay, so
I'm
there's
sure that's not the only
Given the-
grant situation that's going to be different this year.
Absolutely.
And I have
Given the
written
delay-
to Senator Barrett's aides, but have not gotten back any information regarding the environmental grant.
Given the delay, could we still shoot to apply for the shade grant for next year?
Absolutely. As soon as,
Just start doing the work now?
yes, as soon as the form is available.
Yeah, I was gonna. That was my next question, right? So when do we anticipate that they'll allow us to actually submit an application? Do we have any idea, like when they start to take applications for the following year?
I haven't seen the site. I glanced at to say that to see that grants had already been made for this year.
Okay, so
With the deadline having been in March. I did not read in detail as to whether they have a place that talks about the timeline of that grants are accepted during. So I can get that information if it's up.
when we can,
Okay.
And frankly, I would prefer to be the person being the wonk writing the grant as opposed to researching. If there's somebody else who really enjoys bouncing around the internet and looking for that, I would rather just be handed here, here's a grant, fill it out. I don't know if there's anybody on the committee who enjoys doing that.
I don't mind pinging around the internet. I just
Come
don't
on.
have time to do much.
Okay,
So, I mean, if I if I get a spare moment and a spare brain cell at the same time, I will try.
Thank
But,
you.
I think what we can do as a committee, Adele, to help you out with that is we can just say, you know, as a group, we'll do our best to kind of keep our eye out for grants. And, you know, again, you know, as I, you know, have some time, I can quickly look and things like that. I think if we all just do a little bit and kind of take a peek here and there, we might, you know, be able to supply you with some information. So I think as a committee, let's just try to do our best and, you know, investigate when we can. And if we come up with something, let's share it.
Okay.
Okay. So just took a note that we just need to figure out, you know, basically, hey, how are we going to be able to plan on being able to submit for next year? So that's pretty much what I got on that. And then you were saying, Adele, on the environmental grants, I had on here that everything was on hold due to COVID and you were going to speak with the bond people. Did you say something about that and I missed it while I was taking notes?
I had just sent them an email asking what was up, whether there's been any movement, is there any idea when movement may happen, that kind of stuff. Have not heard back yet.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you try to keep in touch with them and see if you can make any progress there and let us know. The only other thing I had to review on the grant side was the survey that we talked about last time, putting together to help us, you know, with raising money based on the idea that people were going to be coming to the park from outside of the town, and that, you know, it is a regional facility potentially, which may open us up to more, you know, statewide grants. And I know Barry and Bill, you guys are kind of going back and forth on that. Bill, you provided a link to the survey questions, I could think from the town or from before. I can't remember.
I know I saw the
So,
survey questions.
It looks like it was a draft,
I
it was a
created,
draft survey that we did before. Is that right?
So Adele and I created these this short survey with 5 questions to try to help identify where folks who are currently using the playground, where they're coming from, where they live.
Yep.
And then also would help to identify how people are using the park, and then what their priorities are in terms of new improvements to the park.
Okay. So
And then open-ended questions or anything else that wasn't covered.
And this was done in anticipation of the timeline of this May being when the Environmental Affairs Committee was going to look at the grants or look at the programs that had been approved for grants and to see to whom they were going to give money this year, because there's a multi-year window for getting these grants. So we have not put out this survey because there was no one to put it out to once everything got closed down.
Right. Oh, understood. So, and then Bill, you had sent me a note saying that originally we were looking at using a Survey Monkey, which would cost money, but you believe that the town could provide us with an online survey that we can use. Is that still the case? If can we use these with the town's online survey?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's great. So we don't have to take any expense on that. And then Barry, I talked to you.
So the process.
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
The process would be that we just need to come to a final set of questions, and then the town will draft it and collect the data. We'll give them a start and an end date, and then they'll collect the data and then provide the data to us.
Okay, perfect. Is that so? If we come to an agreement on the questions and everything like that, are you okay with seeing that forward to get everything taken care of with the town and getting the survey out?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I was just say, if we come to an agreement on the questions, right, that we're going to use, are you able to, provide those with, the context you have at the town to get the survey up and running when we're ready?
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
Along with the start and end date for the survey.
Yes. Okay. All right. So then the other thing was, Barry, me and you had talked about, how are we going to promote the survey, right? And you mentioned that in the last one, and you came up with a good idea around trying to find different Facebook groups of the surrounding towns.
Yeah, I think there's like several components of this, and you can break it up, or I can do it all. I think what we want to do is first of all, identify all the towns. Just write down a list of the towns within about 10 miles of Chelmsford. That's just a mechanical thing with a map. And then for each one of those, find out what kind of news outlet they use. I'm typically thinking of the Facebook groups, like we have several in Chelmsford. So if we can come up with a list of those Facebook groups, and then contact people and find out how we can post to those groups. So that's sort of the first part, identifying where we can put out postings and get people's attention. Initially, because of the timing involved, I think just a simple, and I could draft it, just a simple Facebook post requesting people that have an interest in Roberts Field to fill out the survey, because it's going to help us get funding for the future and future facilities. The second thing, which I hope to do, and I hope in the next few weeks I'll have a better sense of how long it'll take. The other thing that I'm working on is basically CAD drawing to show our welcome area. Try to lay that out. And I found a wonderful tool for anybody interested. It's called SketchUp, and I can give you a little more information on this in the next meeting. It's a three-dimensional modeling tool that allows very realistic looking pictures. And you can model buildings and trees and playground structures and the ball fields and pavilions, anything we want, and we can actually lay it out, combining it with photographs, so we can actually see what these things will look like at Roberts Field. It's a very involved thing. I've got about 50 hours already into just self-training to use it, and I think I'm at the point where I can actually start working for real now. But having said that, in terms of the survey, I'd be willing to do a little video that would show people all the wonderful things that we have in mind for Roberts Field, but that we need funding and that we need you to, go to this site and fill out survey questions. So that's kind of what I've got in my head about how all this stuff fits together, and I welcome any feedback or comments that you guys have on that.
I think we need to go, in terms of towns, far wider than 10 miles, because I know that the constituency that looks for accessible playgrounds will go, frequently goes to Arlington from Billerica, just because Arlington has a really nice accessible playground, and kids get tired of being in the same place all the time for play. So families go, to the different playgrounds listed by the state as accessible. I don't believe we are on that list yet, and I'm not sure whether anyone has explored how to get onto that list.
Now, do you know, is there a requirement? You're kind of, because again, you said you go beyond 10 miles. Yes, for the purposes of the survey is to get the grant. So we want to be able to make sure we have a representation of a large enough population so that it makes sense. So I guess, do you have any idea of how far out we should go?
I would say probably about 20 miles. I think that would get Arlington within the parameters.
20 miles is huge. I think what I can do is I could create a map that would basically just show us the towns that would be involved. And I'm somewhat got a sense of this from my geocaching hobby. 20 miles is a heck of a long way away when it comes to this kind of a thing. Now, it might be necessary, and if we really do have people, hang on one second, if we really do have people coming from 30 miles away, yeah, we want to show that in the survey. So I'm sort of thinking on the spot here, but maybe what we do is we start out with 10 miles. And if we start seeing that we're getting enough traffic from that distance, we should probably expand out and keep going for however long it takes, because I would think that would affect the impact of the survey and getting a grant. Does that sound like a strategy?
It does. We should also have some way of a census kind of thing that someone can walk around the park with, that as opposed to, it would have these general questions, but leave them open-ended so that it's a smaller piece of paper that someone can fit on a clipboard, and perhaps we should be taking turns spending some time at the playground talking to people and just seeing where they're from.
For the your online marketing, Barry, I think you should also include not just like news groups and things, but also parents groups, moms groups and things.
Good
Right.
As well as, I think if you reach out to our reps, our state reps, I think they might help to get the survey out as well.
I mean, what would the state reps do for us? They would
Post a link to the surveys and ask them to ask their constituents to complete them. And Adele, as far as having people with clipboards fill these out, I think it's important that, whatever the online survey is, it's reflected on the written, it's the same as the written copy, so that that information can be input into the main database. So it would have to be the same
I think
thing.
you're right. Whatever we ask on the digital, we should ask, we should have the same survey no matter what, no matter how we're asking for the information.
Right.
Then
And it's 5 questions, so I think it'll fit. Or we can make it shorter.
Then should we have just flyers with the survey to hand out with some
Yes.
sort of identifier so that we know if we get duplicates?
No, I don't know. We could do that, but
Okay.
we could definitely do printed copies and then take the printed copies and enter that data into the master database.
Okay.
When you say duplicates, Adele, you're worried about like the same person filling it out twice?
Well, I'm more concerned, say, about one spouse filling it out at the playground and the other spouse filling it out online, so that we're getting the same household twice.
I'm not sure that's a big enough risk of duplication, but
Okay.
We could call for a small margin of error, I guess, in the survey. to
Yeah.
get that.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
terms of getting it out to groups, I know, Adele, you were mentioning people traveling distances for accessible playgrounds. I don't know if there's a Facebook groups for accessibility that would be the right place to post it as well. I'm not on Facebook, so I'm not very familiar.
I have no idea. I do know that each town has their own special education advocacy group that works with their school. I don't know if, or school system. I don't know if there is then a blanket group for everyone in the state or in the region or anything like that.
Something to look into, though. It's a
I
good
also
idea.
recommend that we share the survey link with the school district and ask them if they have a contact at the adjoining school districts that they might be able to share with their parents as well.
Yeah. I think it's setback in Chelmsford, right? That
Set it down. I mean, Elizabeth.
I think it's SEPAC in Chelmsford is the group.
Correct. I keep
Uh,
forgetting that I've muted.
So if we get in contact with them, they might know the contacts for similar groups outside of Chelmsford
Correct.
or
What's
a
that-
overarching contact.
What's that group again?
SEPAC, setback. I don't remember. I assume it's special education, maybe parents and something Chelmsford. I don't know.
I think it's parent advocacy.
I was going to say advocacy was the word I couldn't remember. It's like when you talk for other people.
And then I would reach out to the superintendent, recommend that you reach out to the superintendent and ask that it be sent out to the parents by email.
All right, all good ideas. Taking notes.
So you're saying reach out to the superintendent, and the superintendent can help to get this to parents? Is that what you're thinking, or direct us to other school superintendent? What was your thought process on that, Bill? I didn't quite pick that up.
So reach out to the superintendent and ask him to send the link to the survey with a blurb of copy saying what it's about to Chelmsford parents, and then to the appropriate age Chelmsford parent. Well, I guess it would be all Chelmsford parents because it's high school too. And then ask them if they have any contacts in the adjoining towns that we could potentially give this link to, that they could send out to their parents as well. I don't know if it'd be successful, but we could at least try.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Bill, you're on mute.
No, I did blank myself out for a
Superintendent
minute
in
because
the
no one
past,
needs to see me rubbing my neck.
the superintendent in the past has published not only links to a survey that we did previously, but also links to the BRIC campaign and things like that. So I think he'd be agreeable to it.
Bill, when I get to that point, I'll reach back to you for more specifics and questions.
All right, so I think at this point, let's move forward to just review the questions real quick. And then if anybody has any, concerns, comments, or suggestions, we can go through that. So right now, really, we're asking them to provide their zip code, which is really what we need, right? I don't think there's any additional information that we're going to need to require, especially we want to be as, sensitive to personal information as possible. So I think zip code's pretty safe. The next one is, how often do you participate in activities at Roberts Field? So this should give us an idea of how frequently they visit the field. Now, do we
Is
need
that
to,
supposed to include the playground?
that's what I was going to ask you, is
Yeah.
we need to, let me look at these, go through real quick.
Yes, it's an activity at Roberts Field. And
Yeah, Roberts
for
Field.
clarification, these questions and the categories are the same as the ones that were in the first survey for the master plan. So there'll be able to be some tracking there to see if anything's changed.
So you can say Roberts Field.
Except for the zip code. We didn't collect zip code information.
I guess, should we add in here Roberts Field and Friendship Park, or?
I would.
I would
From an
include-
assumptive perspective, somebody who goes to the park may be like, well, I go to the park, I'll go to
Right.
the field.
I
I
would
know it
say,
sounds simple and silly, like it's an assumptive thing, like, hey, if you're at the park, you're at the field. But I think
Most people don't know that
interpret
distinction.
those as two separate places, even though they're really not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would wholeheartedly agree, because if I read that, I would be like, well, I'm not in sports at the field. If I was, in terms of when I first moved to town, I certainly wouldn't have known. If I thought of it as Friendship Park, not everyone knows it's Roberts Field, right? It's,
Yeah, that's another point too. If we're going to be sending this to people out of town, they may be more familiar with Friendship Park and not at all familiar really with Roberts Field. Like they,
right. I would just say Roberts Field, including,
Friendship Park.
parentheses, including Friendship Park and surrounding nature walk or something.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I found most people do not understand the distinction between Roberts Field and Friendship Park.
I know I did not for the first several years I lived in town. So, I think until I got on the committee.
I thought that's a very, very good question. And I think number 2 is probably the most important of any of the questions other than number 1. Obviously, we need the zip code. However, I'm going to suggest we be more specific, and I'm not going to offer numbers right now, but rather than saying extremely often or not at all often, you could say like once or twice a year, once or twice a month, once or twice a week, nearly every day. We'll have to come up with that, but I think we would do better to have specific kind of numerical values there, where we can say, 1 to 3 times a month, whatever. And I'm not going to try and figure it out now, but I'd be glad to.
well, you have a good point, because the way it's written, it's open to interpretation, which might be fine. I'll just revert back to you, Adele, and say, based on the reason we're doing this is for these grants. Is the way we're asking this question supportive enough for the grants, right? If we come back and say, oh well, people say they use the park very often, is that enough?
What's that mean?
To come back and say, hey, the majority of the time people are saying they use it, they visit 3 to 5 times in a month, or 1 to 2, or what are your thoughts?
It's not a question that's asked in this context as frequently. There's a general question about how often do you anticipate the park will be used or whatever. But mostly for us, it's the variety of zip code that's the key thing.
Okay.
I have to say that in Barry's thought was mine as well, that we could, it makes a better presentation if we have numbers as opposed to words. But
Yeah,
I'm not married to actually having, twice a year, twice a month, twice a week kind of stuff.
Well, being more specific, unless somebody objects to it, I would push hard for simply to if this is open to interpretation, and it could hurt us. It probably won't, Adele, based upon what you just said.
I don't think it will, only because when you think of surveys, think of the surveys in terms of the politicians who call your home. Everything is phrased this way. Your TV habits are phrased this way. This is standard phrasing for polls. So people do have a significant familiarity with this.
With you mean extremely often or very often and stuff like that?
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
So I would guess that the alternative would be multi times per week, however that would be phrased, weekly, monthly, and then something
we'd want to have
rarely and then never.
Than once a week, more than once a week, once a month, more than once a month.
For our purposes, to me, it seems like these words are a little more persuasive. Plus, the other benefit to having these words is that it was consistent with what was used in the first survey.
So
I guess
Bill,
the
you-
question
you're
is there a
saying-
benefit to change it now or no? Like, is it really?
I don't think there's any real benefit to making any big changes. If we find that there are other things that we want to change and we'll be making changes, then maybe make it a numerical kind of thing. But otherwise, I wouldn't spend the time changing things if we're not going to be changing more than one thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the only
I
thing
would
I would
definitely
say from a,
change
is
the
a,
Roberts Field part, I guess, personally. I really feel strongly that needs to be more clearly generalized to people who don't understand because I see field and I think the field. And
Right.
yeah, I think we're all in agreement. We'll add Friendship Park to that, just to be, again, very clear about what we're asking. So that's, I think.
we want to add the trails beyond it too. The walking trails. Like people who
No,
I don't know. I think the walking trails are, right. I mean, that's,
yeah, now you're starting, now you could list all kinds of things.
yeah. Now you're like, do you visit the pond? Do you visit?
Exactly.
You know?
well, we have 3 distinct areas we've called out in Roberts Field, right? The park, the fields, the nature walk. So it would seem to me that is a consistency that we have.
That would be consistent. That is not anything we need to address specifically in terms of grant information.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, people already know what Roberts Field is. Otherwise, they're not going to answer if they come. If they come into Roberts Field at all, they're
Yeah, if
coming.
they're gonna go there for the track, like the walking paths, I think they know that it's Roberts Field. If they come to the park, I think there is some risk that some people may go to Friendship Park and not, put the association together. That's also part of Roberts Field. But other than that, I think everything else is pretty associated.
Totally agree with that. We need to say Roberts Field and Friendship Park.
Correct. Yeah, I think
Because
that's enough. I don't think we need to elaborate further than that.
What's that?
I said I don't think we need to elaborate any more than just saying activities at Roberts Field and Friendship Park.
I agree.
Okay, and then we'll keep these extremely often, very often. I mean, we can always, adjust later if we feel like we need to, but I think at this point, let's keep those as is. Okay. Next question. What types of activities do you participate in at Roberts Field? Select all that apply. So one of them is, bring your children to Friendship Park, which I think is great because it helps separate it. Is there anything on here that I think that we need to remove or anything we should add?
I have a general concern based upon my own habits. When I get into, I have hung up or broken out of a lot of surveys. I say, oh, I'll be nice and I'll answer a few questions about the product or the park or something. And by the time I get to the 3rd or 4th page, I say, I've got other things to be doing. I'm not going to sit here and go through 10 pages of questions. So I'm not saying to eliminate this, but I'm saying that's a concern, whether we're asking questions that we don't need to know the answers to for the survey. For the grant. Now,
because it's an environmental grant, if we discover that we have a whole bunch of birders who come that we never knew about, that would be a really great thing to put forward to the people who are deciding about the grants. So, and it's only 5 questions. I don't think we're really pushing people's tolerance.
I guess that's one thing I'm looking for with this too is, so are we providing options for selection that are going to benefit us when it comes to grant writing? Like I see kite flying and Frisbee play, right? Is there a grant for kite flying and Frisbee play?
maybe there's an ultimate Frisbee league. Grant, I have no idea.
No, what it does is it talks about the age ranges and that it's not just the playground that's drawing families to play, that it's the entire park that gets used, not just by leagues, like the organized soccer, lacrosse, or baseball, but that families come and they, you know, they engage in other forms of play that's not with the equipment that we have provided. So yeah, it does give us information.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have picnicking on here. We probably should include that.
I would put that instead of sit pondside, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Now, one thing I was going to ask too, I think, because I've seen, the reason I'm doing it is I've seen a lot of people doing it lately, is we have exercise on circuit machines. Could we just open that up to just exercise? Given the fact that, one, we don't have circuit machines there right now, and two, I've seen groups of yoga people go to the field and have yoga classes, which would, I mean, they not exercise on circuit machines, so that, I mean, they would probably just pick other maybe, but I don't know. I'm just trying to see if it would open it up to just people generally who just go there to exercise. Or I mean,
I'm in agreement with that.
yeah, I'm in agreement with that.
That's fine for me.
What are you in agreement with?
Getting rid of on-circuit machines and just leaving exercise. It will kind of conflict with run jog, is the only question.
We can take that one out or replace that one with picnicking.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. Exercise encompasses plenty, and picnicking you can add on. Although, to your Marcus's point about Frisbee, I'm not sure what grant writing possibilities picnicking will open up, but yeah, I agree. It's definitely something that people can go there for. So
It talks to family use and how long people stay in the park.
So just to recap, the changes for number 3 are add picnicking, change the circuit machines to exercise, and remove run and jogging.
Correct.
I think that works. You can massage this stuff all night long, but
okay. Should we, again, it's just a question, should we add biking? Because I see a lot of people riding their bikes, or we feel like that would fall under exercise?
Do people ride their bikes throughout the park or just to and from the park?
I see
like on the
people
trails.
riding their bikes in the fields and then also on the trails. I mean, I go with my girls and we ride on the trails.
yeah, people do that.
Oh, are you okay?
No,
Oh, my daughter just lost her tooth.
Oh, congratulations.
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 Yay.
Never a dull moment.
I mean,
How old is she now?
Intermission. She's gonna be 11 in July.
Wow.
very good.
It's one of the last ones. Last teeth.
Having a lot of items on here on one hand, shows the grant folks that the park is, suitable for a lot of different things. I mean, you could throw down geocaching and model rocketry and all kinds of stuff that I know the park is used for, but there's a point at which we may be
That's
going
what
too
other
far.
is for.
Yeah. Biking is not bad. You could replace run and jog, or you could say run, jog, run, jog, and bike.
We're eliminating run and jog, run
Yeah.
and jog anyway as being duplicate to exercise. So
Biking isn't really, I wouldn't consider it an exercise type of activity. I mean, you do get exercise, of course, but it's more of a recreational type of thing.
Yeah.
Just a thought. I don't know.
I don't really have an opinion on that.
Well, I would never have thought that the trails would be used for them because of the raised bridges and such. So I find it particularly interesting that there is a definite population that comes to the park for biking.
But the
It's
question,
actually, the raised bridges are really fun on your mountain bike.
the
It's
question is-
tricky, but it's fun.
the question is, do we want to encourage it? Because putting that on the survey would. At some
Oh,
point,
I don't think so. I think if you haven't already thought of it,
So what are, I guess, is anybody opposed to it? Okay, so we can add biking, and then all right, so I think, yeah, just to recap on question 3, we have remove circuit machines, so it's just exercise. We have add picnicking and remove run and jog and add biking. Anything else? All right, let's move on to question 4.
So we have a net increase of 1. Is that
Yeah, I think so, yeah. All right, so which of the planned future park improvements are important to you? Select all that apply. Baseball fields, Walters lacrosse.
So for this question, this is going to provide for some priorities, right? So
Right.
you know, if shade structure becomes the highest priority, then that kind of helps us with where we want to focus our attention. One thing that I wanted to try to do was to add a number to these, but I couldn't do it with a free version of SurveyMonkey, and I don't know that the town's survey can do it. So, for instance, it might be you know, rank 1 to 5 each of these. I don't know what they can do
Yeah.
yet though. So
Yeah,
does that kind of confuse things from a grant standpoint? Are we trying to accomplish 2 different things?
well, the data that we'll get back on this now would be, you know, of 1,000 people, you know, 500 people said pond dredging, right? Versus we would be able to say that 1,000 people ranked pond dredging, gave it a score of 3.5.
almost like a
You know
star,
what I mean?
possibly, if we could do this some sort of star rating, Bill.
Yeah, I just don't know what I don't know what their capabilities are. So
Okay.
I figured I'd see what you guys wanted to do, if you wanted to stick with it just like this, which again is consistent with what we did for the master plan survey, or if you wanted to expand on it, we could add up some sort of a rating for each one.
I mean, I'm actually not opposed to like a star. If they can do a star rating, that's super simple. People will get that. You just have like, you know, whatever, 4 stars next to each question, and you say, you know, rate each question as how important it is to you. You know, 1 being the least, 4 being the best stars, and then it's pretty simple. It's pretty standard. If they can't, and then I would just leave it. I think choosing a number, I don't sound silly, maybe too confusing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, the stars are the numbers, so that's fine.
No,
so
I know.
it's
I'm just trying to
an
think of-
either or.
Yeah.
So either the check boxes or a star rating, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. What do you guys think?
I think that works.
I'm fine with leaving it as just the check boxes, so we can say that out of 1,000 respondents, 300 said that X was important to them, as opposed to how important it was to them.
And the question is, do you want to say are most important to you, and suggest they only check no more than 5?
And Adele, I think if we were going to use this for a grant, we could choose, I think, what information we provide. So we could still say, 1,000 people said this was important, and then we could use the rating ourselves to determine, what projects we prioritize.
Yes, but to the point of, if we do a 5-point system for each item, that takes people more time. If they just have to check off, yeah, these are important to me,
Mhm.
it's faster through the survey
Sure.
and still gives us valuable information.
Yeah.
If it's not important to them, it won't get checked. If it's very
Mhm.
important to them, it will get checked.
Yeah, I think we can get our numerical assessment of how important things are based on how many people vote for things. I think complicating it with ratings, I think it's asking for more interest in the survey than a check mark, personally. I think it's asking for more time investment and less likely for them to get done.
And we will get that from people who are truly invested in the park, which tend to be Chelmsford residents. And that's what we had with the survey, the initial survey of what did the park need. It was the people who live nearby and use it often that gave us the most detailed answers. But at this point, we're not only looking for the local people, we're also trying to get the people who use this as a destination site, as opposed to a neighborhood feature or a convenience site.
Right. Okay. All right. So Bill, I think maybe at this point we leave it, but if you want to explore and see if that's a potential option for a later survey, and then we can continue the discussion. But I think at this point, it sounds like, overall the committee wants to keep it without having a rating, just to keep it simple. One thing I did want to ask, 2 points on here. One, it says more parking and restriping parking lots. So they've already restriped the parking lots.
Yeah.
So do we just remove and restriping parking lots? Do we keep more parking? Do we remove it? Because it's not something we're going to be able to add anytime soon.
I don't think it's.
Or do we leave it
Actually,
because then
I
that'll
think-
justify our need for it, right?
I think we leave it. I think we leave it and we see if we get a lot of votes for it, because I think that it's going to come back. I think it's going to be an issue that comes back up for people. And if we have it listed here, I personally do not understand how they got rid of the 20%. What was it? Approximately 20% increase that was rated for on the plan without having a conversation with us first and trying to come up with. I think we're gonna run into issues. I mean, if you go down there right now, even just, now this is hopefully going to change at some point. It seems to have become a staging point for all parades in the area, for all the birthday parades. Every single afternoon I go by, there's always some parade that's getting started there where people are meeting to go out, and that's taking up pretty much the entire lower parking lot. I hopefully COVID will dissipate and that will not be a long-term experience, but I think the parking situation is going to be problematic, and I do think we should keep it on here so that we can go back with data and be like, hey, look at this percentage of population that go, we'd like more parking. Do we have, I assume since this is from the original one and there was votes for this originally?
Did we, Bill, we sent this out and got responses on it from before? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's something we can compare to the next one that we do. I think would be interesting to be able to see like what the response was before and what it is now. So, okay. I was just curious to see if we should leave it. What about restriping parking lots, since that's already been done? Should we just have it be simply more parking?
I'll strike restriping.
Say more parking capacity, and that should cover it, right? Bill, did you want to say the restriping?
I can't hear you, Barry. You need to sit closer to your mic.
Bill, did you want to say the restriping? Did you want to say?
No, I'll strike the striping from the.
Okay.
Remove restriping, okay. And then surveillance video cameras, I think, is that still, should we keep that? That was the only, I was just curious, I mean,
I think those are already,
there, or I don't think, yeah, I don't see anything additional really being done there. That's why I was just curious, but.
yeah, I don't see need to put that in the survey at this point, but I don't care if other people.
It would be a nice reinforcement. I mean, a lot of these things are, the 2 new baseball fields. That's already a done deal as well. So
Sure.
I think it speaks to the importance of cameras if people choose them, and I think they probably would.
Okay, that's fine. We can leave it. I was just seeing if open it up for questions. Okay, so we're good on that. Question 5. Do you have any other thoughts, questions, concerns about improving Roberts Field? I think that's pretty straightforward. No changes needed there. Anybody?
Do you want to include improving Roberts Field and Friendship Park?
Yeah. All right. That sounds, yeah, to be consistent. Yeah, that's a good idea, Bill.
Should handicap toilet facilities be added on here, or is it just a given that you have that with a park?
What facilities?
Bathroom facilities. Toilet, they're not, I don't see it listed here. Is it something that,
It's set by the state and ADA. It's done.
okay,
So do you want to add handicap parking and bathroom facility or porta potty?
Right. What handicap accessible, like porta potty? Is that what you're trying to think, or?
Parking and porta potty, I guess, because we're not going to build anything.
Well, there are handicap spots there. So what were you thinking? What was your thinking around adding handicap parking? I would think that if somebody who felt there wasn't enough handicap parking, it would just be more parking. Right?
yeah, and at some point we're splitting hairs. I mean, it gets into, yeah.
I don't want to ask about anything we can't deliver.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty good list. I mean, you
I
can,
do too. I think we're just gonna beat this
Okay.
around, but
all right, let's move on. We got some good suggestions about some additions and removals. We can review again, but okay, so we're good on that. Okay, so
Real quick, so
yeah,
real quick. So the plan would be that I'll revise these and send them back to you, and then they'll be approved at the next meeting. And then we would
No, I
also
think
need to.
if you guys want them, if you're just to move things forward, I mean, at the end, we can just take a vote on the changes, and then Bill, you can just move forward. Is that okay or no?
I would so
Do
move.
you have a survey date, start and end time in mind? That's really what's going to drive the timing on this. When do you want to start it? When do you want to end it?
Let's see.
no brother.
So we start and end dates. Let's see. I
I guess this is an Adele question. It's about how soon she's
Well,
gonna need this.
guess is there any urgency behind this as it relates to us being able to provide information to apply for a grant? Or do we wait so that Barry can do his video, which I think, Barry, you said the video might take you 2 months to put together. And then we release it later. I mean,
Videos are wonderful. I really don't think it's necessary to any of this. And while I appreciate the offer of it being made, I think there's better use for time.
Okay.
We may wind up wanting to have an accompanying video for the grants itself, as opposed to a video that solicits people to participate in the survey. So
I'm actually good with that. Why don't we just drop the video ideas and see how the modeling works out? Because I've got to do some of this modeling for the welcome area, and let's just see how that looks and whether that provides an opportunity we want to take advantage of. But even with this, now that we're talking about, there's going to be some time spent to research the towns and research places to, it's going to take some time to just to get all of the avenues for having people contacted to do the survey. So
The other thing I was thinking about too is, I mean, the park just reopened, right? And so if we sent the survey out next week, we're probably not going to get a huge amount of response because people haven't been doing anything the last 3 months. So what are your thoughts about, maybe pushing this out to, maybe like the first week in August? And that would give
having not seen what the dates are for many grants, I can't answer that right now. One of the things that we could do is on the instructions, please answer for your use prior to limited social activity or what, or from before COVID-19.
You bring up a very good point, because I was struggling with the first question: how often do you use the park? But I could see it saying, how often do you anticipate? How often have you used, or do you anticipate using the park after the COVID pandemic is beyond us?
Yeah, I agree. Adding that would be worthwhile.
See, I would just phrase it, how often have you participated in activities at Roberts Field and Friendship Park? Leave it open, less
What about-
specificity.
maybe put in like in the last 12 months or something?
What about people who
'Cause
are just
that'll open
finding
up to last summer.
time and expect to move forward using it?
Yeah, see, here's the thing. People, when we talk about the pavilion, the walking path, brand new exercise equipment, all that stuff, that's going to whet people's appetite. And they're going to think, oh, well,
Barry, you need to move closer to your
I'm so sorry.
microphone.
I've got to get a different mic system here. But once once we have all these new facilities in the park, like, the pavilion and the walking path around the pond and all that area and the exercise equipment, it's going to whet people's appetite, and they're going to want to, they might answer differently if they answer in terms of what they expect to be doing in the future with the enhanced park versus what they have been doing in the past. I would certainly think so.
How does that affect us responding to grants though, Adele? Are we supposed to be sharing information on what people may be doing in the future, or sharing historical data on what they actually have?
Oh, you spin it both ways. You talk
Oh.
about how it's been used and how you're hoping it'll be used, and
So we could word that.
I mean, that's almost a separate question then. It's like, oh, how often have you used the Roberts Field? How often do you anticipate using Roberts Field? Those are two.
if we reversed questions 2 and 3, so that people actually saw the different activities, then I would say that it might whet people's appetites or whatever.
I like that idea, actually, because if we can get higher numbers, I think it's going to help, isn't it? Somebody says,
Higher
"Oh,
numbers are always good.
no, but somebody might say, well, I go to the park 2-3 times a year now, but gee, looking at all this stuff, I could see going over there a couple times a month.
Hmm.
Don't know if that, flips the needle any for us, but it could.
Yeah, I mean, what it does is it complicates the questionnaire a little bit because we're almost, like I said, asking two questions. We're asking the people to look at the questions in a form of what in past and future, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much, question 2 and 3, it's all in the past, and then question 4 is, hey, that's the future questions right there, right?
Can I see the previous slide again, please?
Because this is what activities do you participate in, right? So and it's important for us to know what people actually go there for, not necessarily what they may go there for.
I think it's fine. Although I would put the move question 2 to be question 4. That's all.
So you're saying question 2 would come at the end?
Yeah, because at that point you'll have thought through all the things you might sometimes go there for, and will help you spur your numbers, I would bet. Right? Is that your intent? If you're like, oh yeah, actually I go there to walk, and sometimes I take the dog there, and oh yeah, I do actually run there. You might do it differently than if the first thing you see is that question. You're like, I don't know, I go to the park once a month. I don't know.
You could make it a vague question too. You could say something like, what do you see as your typical usage of Roberts Field and Friendship Park? Or
That's what this covers right here, Barry.
No, that's projective as opposed to actual.
This is what types of activities do you participate in?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm trying to reword the frequency. How frequently do you see yourself using Roberts Field?
Frequently do you expect to use Roberts Field?
Well, I'm trying to make that vague so they could answer either current or the future.
Roberts Field usage?
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to help in terms of answering grant questions.
Okay.
And we can, sit
Okay.
here and rack brains, but
the only way I can see us getting these two questions answered is to put them in two parts. Whereas this question would be, how often have you participated in activities at Roberts Field over the past 12 months? And then we ask another question at the end, which is, how often do you plan on, or how often do you anticipate participating in activities over the next 12 months? I think it has to be a two-part question.
I think you're going to have to be a little careful with the 12 months, since the 12 months both directions count COVID.
Yep.
And
I like what you just recommended. I would just say after the COVID pandemic.
yeah, I would say pre-COVID, and I would say post-COVID.
So if you say, that's what I'm saying. If you do 12 months from when we send it out, if we send it out in August, right? 12 months is going to cover the first half of this summer and the last half of last summer.
Well,
unless we
Marcus, I'm going to take you back to what you suggested. How long? The first question becomes, how often have you historically gone to the park? And the last question then is, how often do you expect to be going to the park post-COVID with some of the improvements that we've laid out, or something to that effect? Or even just forgetting that, just how often do you expect to go to the park once we're through the post-COVID pandemic?
I would leave off the post-COVID-19.
It's kind of, I think you're right. It's an assumption that if we're asking in the future, it's because everyone's perspective of post-COVID. I mean, people may be thinking, oh, well, we're going to be in COVID for the next 2 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's a very broad statement. So I guess if
I agree. I
mean,
I guess this is what it comes down to.
I agree. What do you expect for your future use of the park, or something to that effect? Something very simple.
So what I'm hearing is, let's just kind of make a decision on this now so we can move forward, is we want to know how often people have participated in activities in Robertsville.
Yes.
And how often they plan on participating in activities going forward.
I don't think we need to know about planned activities for the future. I don't think that's anything that gives us valuable info that's any more valuable than the listing of priorities for the use of the park.
Dale, let me just challenge you. You may be right, but let me just challenge you on this. If you got a lot of people that came to you and said, you know, I go to the park once a month. I've gone to the park once a month, and then they say, in the future, I could see going to the park every week. Now, imagine you had a large number of people that had that kind of a shift in expected usage. And that's going to include not only the people taking walks and so forth, but the sports fields too. Now that you've got the improved sports fields, you're going to have a lot more activity there. Probably to the point of being a problem. But the idea then is, and the question I'm asking you is, if the last question shows that, you know, shows numbers much higher than the first question, is that going to help from a grant point of view to have those high numbers? I would think so, but I don't know. If not,
In the Lowe's grant, which is the only one I've written,
okay,
there has been nothing about asking with specificity, in what ways do you think you'll have new usage of the park? You get general questions like the improvements you want to make, in what way do you think they'll benefit and increase attendance?
okay,
But I'm not sure that having a specific question and changing and the effort in changing the survey is worth, you know, how we're going to answer that question. Because we're going to assume that there's going to be increased usage of the park.
yep, okay,
You know, we answer in a way that assumes that whatever we do will create a greater draw.
true.
Okay, I guess so at this point, it sounds like, you know, we bounced it back and forth and everything, but
Leave it as it is.
it seems like we leave it as it is and we run with it with the suggestions we've made. Okay. And then again, this isn't the last.
I thought I heard, I'm sorry, I thought I heard that question 2 should be changed to how often have you participated in activities at Robertsfield rather than how often do you participate?
Well, the only reason I was going to say that is if we also had the question of, you know, I guess in the future, right?
So it stays as it.
I would leave it as it is. Yeah.
I would say have you is, it's,
I think that's preferable.
I think have you is preferable given the current world
Yeah,
circumstance.
because if they answer that based upon today, they could say, I don't use it at all. You know, how often do you? I don't. But if you say, how often have you participated in activities, then they can think back to last year or whatever, you know, beginning of this year and say, oh yeah, okay. That's my opinion. It's a small change, but I would go have you participated.
The reason I suggest it is in terms of pre and post COVID-19, there are going to be some people who are, I'm not taking my kid any place where there's that many people. Period.
Right.
Whereas, you know, we used to be there both days on every weekend, but
Right.
this year I'm just not ready to take any risks.
Well, that's my concern, right? I mean, we're not going to the playground. We're not going to the playground at all because that's just where we're at risk-wise as my family deciding for us. But we also have a backyard, and I can imagine that if I had less, people in my life with pre-existing conditions, and I lived in an apartment with no backyard, I would be making very different calculations right now about bringing my children to the park.
Right.
So I think doing a pre-current state would be the right thing to do.
It's
I
just
think,
leaving it a little vaguer, I think.
Yeah.
And vague is good.
Okay.
So change from do you to have you. Is that where,
Yep.
is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. So they were in agreement on that. Okay.
Good. Excellent.
Perfect. All right, let's move on. All right, so the Pondside Pavilion, where was I on this? Okay. Let's see. So the latest on this from last time we met was we asked Steve to include it in phase 2, which he's going to do, which is great. We had talked about identifying funds for the project through the grants, which we already talked about. And we
Can I
just
interrupt? I'm sorry.
the final. Oh, go ahead.
So I didn't hear a discussion about the timing of the survey. Was there? First off, do you think it needs to be a 4-week, 6-week, 8-week? How long do you think the survey should be open?
Bill, how long did we have it open last time? You remember?
I believe it was 8 weeks. I believe. I'd have to go back and check.
was
But
8 weeks?
one of the things to consider, I believe it was 8. I believe it was 2 months, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But I can check. One of the things to consider is that if we do want people to fill out forms, I wouldn't consider it safe to put volunteers out there with clipboards to talk to people right now. Maybe that'll change in the fall, but
I agree.
That's just
I wouldn't
something to
want
consider.
do that.
Yeah, we can table that one. I mean, I think it's an interesting concept. I think first and foremost, we get the electronic version out, and then we kind of play it by ear and see how everything goes with, the COVID and all that stuff, whether anyone would want to go out there in a mask and gloves and do a survey. But
Well, then we definitely have to put up on the announcement board about the survey.
Good point. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, we can do that. Put on the bulletin board. Yeah.
Okay, so the survey period, we're gonna hold off on defining right now. So that means that I'll give you a revised copy of the survey for everybody to
Sure.
look at and blast at the next meeting. And then we'll plan to determine what the timing will be next meeting.
I think that's a good plan. That's fine.
Okay.
I don't think we're in any huge rush.
Unless I hear back from the Senate committee people, anything different.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so then we're good on the survey questions. So moving on to the pavilion, I think, again, we talked about identifying funds for the project via grants, which we talked about. We talked about fundraising stuff, which, I know we looked at, equipment that could be donated. I still need to put together the list for that. And then also we talked about doing some sort of a built by a brick campaign for the walkway. I don't think there's anything that we need to make decisions on that now. I just wanted to kind of, review what we discussed before. I think the big topic right here is the design for the pavilion. I know that we discussed that last time. And Barry, I was going to ask you, because you have that new software that you were talking about, could you use that to help with maybe the design, or is it all set? Are we looking at just this covered bridge picture here and we're good? Or do we need to put together the design?
I believe it's going to match the style of the shade structure in the playground.
That's certainly what I would hope for.
Okay.
That's pretty close. If it's not the exact one, I think it is, but if it's not the exact one, it's pretty close to it. The colors are different on the post because they ended up using metal posts.
So I don't think we need to put a whole lot of time in terms of design and such. That's
Yeah.
pretty much already decided and
I think
focused
that-
upon by DPW.
Exactly. I don't think anything we put into that would probably be given a lot of weight. They're gonna find a vendor and do it, you know, most practical.
Okay. All right. So then, that's pretty much what I had for this. Yeah. I don't. Is there? I'm trying to think of what else. What else did we have really that we were working on to push this initiative forward specifically for the pavilion? I mean, other than if we don't have any money, we can't really do anything. We know what the design is, so we're good there.
I assume it's not moving forward anyway until all the other stages of irrigation and stuff are down, right?
Right.
So
Basically,
Right, I'm just trying to determine, you know, is there anything else we can do specifically as a committee as it relates to the pavilion?
I think besides getting the shade structure grant, I personally can't think of anything.
Yeah, that and the fundraising for seating and nearby and the brick.
I'm assuming we're a couple of years out on this. Is that kind of where people are guessing on this at this point?
the DPW basically has said that the,
Barry, I can barely hear you, very muffled.
We're out till next year on this, at least.
the DPW has pushed about a year out just to get the, what is it, the approval of the, they need to get,
Conservation Commission.
Conservation Commission approval, I guess.
Right. Okay. All right, so there's not much to discuss on this one. I mean, again, general fundraising and grant stuff, I think is going to fall under all of the projects we're working on.
Right.
So it's not really anything specific to the one, I think.
Well, I think this is the only one that the shade structure, the shade grant covers.
With the
Right?
shade grant, no, I get it, yeah. All right, so the bathroom enclosure, I think the way that this was left last was, you know, I was going to talk to someone I knew in Girl Scouts, which I've done, and what she told me was interesting. She said that this wouldn't really be a project for Girl Scouts because she said that the Girl Scouts are different from the Eagle Scouts, and the projects that they work on need to be something that is continued and maintained. Like it's something that has to be continually worked. It's not like building a structure and you're done with your project. It's something they have to continually go back to and continue to work on. So she's like, yeah, you should definitely talk to someone in Eagle Scouts. So I know, Elizabeth, you'd mentioned that you might know somebody.
I got in contact with the mother I know who has a son in Boy Scouts, and she gave me a name, but I haven't been able to follow up yet. So I will do that.
Okay. All right, perfect. And then, I mean, that's kind of where we're at with that again, until we can get some money. We either have to have it voluntarily built or we raise some money. So nothing really more to do on this one either then, until we can establish either someone to voluntarily do it or put together some fundraising. All right, next. Hardscape play area. I know we talked about this last time. The last thing we kind of discussed was the expansion of Engine 3 and if there was going to be an opportunity to take advantage of them adding pavement, which they're not as of right now. So I think we're in the same boat with the hardscape play area where again at this point we don't have the funds to do it, and that's really where we just need to focus is on fundraising before we can do anything else. Anybody have any thoughts on that other than that?
No, but I think we decided this was going to
It's lower
follow
priority.
the priority. This is
Yep.
going to be low on the priority list.
It is, yeah.
I think also all of those exercise equipment things will help with the increasing the age range accessibility of Roberts Field. So I mean, I think a hardscape place would be fun, but I don't think it's, I think one of the goals of making sure there was things for older children or teenagers to do might be met by some of that exercise stuff.
Right. Yeah. All right. So then the upper lower parking deck, I think the last we talked about this, the most important part was the signage, right? And Bill, I know you were working on signage. I think that.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I will.
Okay.
Basically,
So, what did you send me
Roberts
then?
Field sign.
You sent me a bunch.
That's a playground signage.
Oh, the playground signage. Okay. So that's right. You were going to work on the draft for the Roberts Field sign.
There's two signs, at least that I think we've discussed. One is to replace the maroon Roberts Field sign that's there now.
Right.
My thoughts on that were to make it match the Friendship Park sign on the entryway, but
Okay.
obviously saying Roberts Field. And then I just haven't done it yet. And then a sign in the welcome area.
Okay. So let's see.
The sign in the welcome area, we needed to talk about what it would include. At least in my mind, the thoughts were that it would include a map of the entire park, which would probably need to be a painting because it's not going to be completed to be able to have any kind of Google Earth photo or any kind of drone photos to work from. So it would probably be some sort of an illustration. It would have rules. I've reached out to the town to ask for what their rules are. They don't seem to have those posted anywhere. And then the only other thing was we had talked about it in another iteration of the committee about adding a listing of all of the volunteer and scout projects that had taken place in Roberts Field over the years. So that could be a small piece of one of the signs. And then what that sign would look like, I think that's this welcome area discussion.
Fill me in again. The exact location of the welcome area is going to be centered where the sort of across from where the Roberts Field sign is now, or is it going to be down more towards the corner?
I think it's going to be over near where the shack is, Barry, right? Bill, that's what you're thinking, near where the bridge is, in between where the bridge and the.
I think the space was between the parking lot, the shack, and the playground. Sort of that section of area there, and then however the pieces kind of fit together and work best.
Good. Okay. Good. That works.
And that's Barry. That's the tool that you were going to use.
That's going to give me a starting point because that's where I was planning to do work anyway. But I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page on that. So that works.
Okay. So basically, I mean, next steps are Barry. You're going to try to work on developing some sort of a site plan with the new software that you have, which is great. Yep. So looking forward to maybe see that on the next meeting. I mentioned I was going to talk to the shack owner. I haven't done that yet. I need to do that. And then we were going to have somebody maybe talk to Mahoney's about possible donations. And then Bill, you're working on signage. So I can.
And then if there's anything else that people want to see or feel like should be included on the sign, you just need to kind of know what those are. So that'll,
so you're
does it
saying
need to have a bulletin board?
Go ahead.
In my mind, I was thinking a map, rules.
Right. List the volunteers from the projects.
Place who to contact with questions. We could include contact information for the stakeholders that use the park, baseball and lacrosse. On the map, we could identify the fields. Some of the baseball fields will have names, so we can identify those so people can find them. And then the only other thing that I could remember that we talked about.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Did we talk about
the only other thing that we were talking about was the list of volunteer projects?
Yeah, I think that's good. The one thing I was going to say on the contacts for like the fields and stuff, those change frequently because if you're making a sign and it's going to be permanent, would there be an issue with that? I mean, down the road with the names of those people?
Contacts for what?
Like you were saying,
I don't think it would be individuals.
What would it? Oh, okay. I thought you were saying like contacts for, people with the baseball fields or the lacrosse fields and stuff like that. So I just wasn't sure if you were thinking of people putting people's names and contact information or something. I don't
No,
know.
more
probably
like the
more
email.
like Chelmsford Youth Baseball and whatever
Their
it is.
email
Chelmsford,
address.
Okay.
I'm sure they have a
Website.
website or something.
Okay.
Right?
So it's not really who to contact. It's not a person. It's a,
Organization.
Right.
so it's more like contact information.
And it may not be necessary. I don't know. I don't know if they would want to have it on there.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you guys,
No problem with any of those.
and probably Bill in particular, given thought to the actual structure of the sign? Would it be like a triangular structure? Because I know a long time ago we talked about that, and we talked about two-sided. Do you have something specifically in mind? I mean, there's a lot of examples of stuff out there that we can go with. I didn't know to what extent you'd solidified your thoughts on this.
I would vote for being consistent with what's there now. So if we want to make it a functional signage area, we could do something like the main kiosk sign that's in the playground that has a bench seat attached to it.
Yep.
Or we could use the natural play area kind of sandwich style sign, just a double-sided sign. But here again, something consistent with what's already there.
Okay,
So it all looks like it fits together.
that's good input. I could draft something and we can look at it and see what we think.
Yeah, I just put here the sign design should be consistent with the park signage.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I think for this, really, we're just looking for, I guess, Barry and Bill, you guys are going to work on the signage design and then the site plan, and then I'll talk to the shack in Mahoney's, and I think that's really it for this.
Okay, I'm going to try to focus on the modeling next, because I do have a fair amount of work to do to start planning for the survey too, as far as getting that out. So I'm going to try to juggle those two. If anybody wants to kick in with the latter a little bit, that's fine. I welcome it. Just let me know, and otherwise, those are the two main things I'm going to pick away at. And Bill, I'm working on your review of the donor plaque
Okay.
names too.
All right. Perfect. All right. So, Bill, these are the pictures that you shared me around the playground signage. So, do you want to talk through your ideas here and ask any questions?
Sure. So I presented the playground signage plan a couple of meetings back. The changes from that version that I shared with you to this version are that the main signage, the main sign kiosk now has a drawing in the main rule sign, and then the natural play area has a painting as well, illustration for the natural play area. There's also an additional garden marker in the Five Senses garden. The town wanted to have three signs saying "Stay off the rock wall" in the Five Senses garden, and then they wanted 2 in the butterfly garden. So we included information about the gazing ball and added the sponsor plaque to that in the form. So if you go to the next slide, we can look at the specifics. It's easier to see. So this is the main playground kiosk sign. You can see there's the watercolor drawing. There's the 2 broad areas, the 5 to 12 year area and the 2 to 5 year area are identified, as well as the natural play area, which is consistent with what was on the original sign. I didn't include, there was a notation of the shade structure. on the original sign, but I didn't think that was really necessary. It's kind of obvious it's there. So that's the update on this sign. And the town has approved the rules and all. This is all their information.
That looks great.
Yeah, Hannah Barker did the illustrations. They're really nice. They fit with the style, I think, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can we go to this one? Or is this?
Yeah, this is the natural play area. So you can see the new illustration on there showing the perspective of the natural play area. And then the new garden marker down at the bottom and how they're kind of broken out. And the sponsor plaques are consistent with what's on the sitting stones now. So it'll all look consistent.
Nice. Yeah, these look great.
Yeah.
They really do.
And then the next one. Nothing changed on this. This is still the same. But that's the trail marker over behind the fire station, the trail marker sign. I'd like to be able to use an updated Google Earth image. I was looking at them today, but there's nothing that's really there. And then the other thing is that it's not going to have the new stuff in it. The walking trails and circuit machines and new field locations. So we may end up just kind of going with what we have here. It should be short money to reprint this sign once we get that done a couple of years from now.
Bill, I was going to say, we do have Google Maps, not Google Earth, but Google Maps has an updated image that shows the current playground.
Right, but it doesn't show. It doesn't show the stuff, the new fields or the walking track. So it's kind of.
No, we would have to. That's where, and again, I just don't know what the timeline is going to be because I'm focusing on the other side right now. But that's where some of the stuff I'm working on could fall in here and help to update this, and show things like the pavilion and things like that. So we could, but we're not going to be there for probably a few months.
So in terms of timeline on these, Red Mill Graphics is putting together a quote for printing these. All of the signs except for this wildlife sanctuary sign would be printed on 1/2-inch black PVC. And then this one will be on a thinner stock because it actually fits inside of a doored box. So we'll see what they have. If their prices work out with what budget we have, limited budget we have, we'll go that way. If we can't, we can use the same vendor from Rhode Island that printed the existing signs at the playground, and that was pretty short money. So we should be okay on that. So hopefully we'll get these. If there's not any significant changes to these, get these printed sooner rather than later, and get them installed.
That's exciting. That'd be great. I mean,
Yes.
Do you need volunteers to help install them, or is DPW going to do that, or how are you getting them installed?
Really, the only installation, the one that's going to really require any significant installation, is going to be the natural play area sign, and that's just a matter of putting in the 6x6 cedar posts and then screwing the sign to the posts. So I would say it'll be a volunteer installation. And when the time comes, they can put a call out to volunteers to help with that. But it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I mean, the other stuff just screws right onto the main kiosk sign, so it's pretty simple.
Okay.
Just going to note that the signage could potentially be a volunteer project.
Yeah, I would plan on making it a volunteer project at this point. I mean, that's kind of where we're heading. I don't want to burden the DPW with it, but if I'm sure if they were out there doing something, they would do it for us.
Right. Okay. And then one of the questions would be we could do this together, but is it a volunteer effort that would be led by the Friends of Roberts Field, and then we could help support it the best we can, being the advisory committee. How do you, I guess, envision that? I mean, I have a section here to talk about volunteer stuff, just because I was kind of curious how that would work moving forward.
For the installation?
Oh, just I mean, for the signage and then just in general with like volunteer stuff. Because I know the Friends of Roberts Field, you guys have your own volunteer projects that you're working on. I guess I'll table it. Hold on. I have a.
Okay. I don't think the installation is going to be that big of a project, but I mean, if a couple of people want to kick in and dig a hole, that's fine.
Yeah.
And fill it with concrete. That's pretty much what it's going to require.
Okay. So does anybody else, I guess, have any thoughts, comments, or questions around the signage that Bill is proposing? I mean, I think it all looks great, so I have no problem with you moving forward as planned. So.
I agree. I think.
Agreed.
From what I can see, it looks great. I can't actually read the text on them, so but I guess if I assume that if I look at the slides that you sent, will I be able to, as a text in fidelity?
Yeah, it's legible. Yeah, I have it on another monitor that's bigger, and it's legible on a big monitor. So when I send it to you, you'll be able to see it. So if you want to, I mean, if you want to read through it, and if you have any questions or comments about it, I would say Bill, just email Bill direct.
Okay. I mean, they look beautiful.
I would ask that.
Read the text.
I would appreciate any feedback or any kind of comments that you guys have on the content for sure, especially the copy. Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
Please. The text above each grouping of pictures on the back side of the natural play area sign. My goal in that stuff as you read through these was to sort of encourage kids to engage with these things. So if there's a better way to word those, that would be helpful. The descriptors on the front of the sign for each of the things, any feedback on that would certainly be welcome. And then especially on the garden markers, any feedback or changes on the content there would be helpful. Other than we can't change the please keep off the rock wall, but everything else within there is.
I know. I wish we could
change.
Yeah.
Well, I think these sort of meet the need and kind of serve us all.
Yeah, they're
but I'd
definitely
ask
better looking than the signs that are there, so that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're consistent. I would ask that any changes be sent over to me, like if you can, within the week.
Mm-hmm. All right.
We've opened up the slides that you sent the other day that have the pictures of the signs. I can't actually read like the text on any of the first page of signs, the playground signage plan.
What, this one?
But can you go to the next pages where they're enlarged?
All of these, Elizabeth, are in the next, right? Aren't they kind of spread out, Bill?
Yeah, the first page is just an overview of all of the signs that would be printed, and then they're broken out individually.
Right.
I can't read the 5 Senses Garden ones. I have it on a 32-inch monitor. I can't actually read the text.
Could you send out I guess, Bill, if you send out the PowerPoint version versus PDF, that might make it easier for people to read it because they could increase the
I'll send a larger version to you, version of the PDF.
Okay. Okay, that should be good. All right, so then Sandbox, I know we talked about this a little bit. I haven't been able to dig a hole yet. I'll try to see it if, I don't have my hole digger. That's why I haven't done it. But if I can get my hands on one, I'm happy to go out and try again to see what I'm able to find. So
I think we have a post hole digger.
if anybody has one, if you wanna lend it to me, I'm happy to dig the hole.
No, I do. I have a postal digger. I thought you had one, so I didn't offer it, but no.
I thought I did too. I tore my shed apart and I could not find it. And I
Yeah.
actually needed it for something, and other than this, and I didn't have it. Although I dug the hole with just a shovel before, but it would be better if we were able to have the postal.
Give me a buzz in the next few days, and I'll get mine over to you, or you come get it. Or
Okay.
whatever. Figure out something.
Perfect. All right.
Have you, not to be wet blanket, but have you okayed this with the two Steves?
Steve, to dig a hole in it.
Steve C and Steve J.
I guess I'll shoot him an email and ask him. I didn't think it'd be.
I mean, the two things I would make sure that they're okay with you digging the holes, and the other thing is to make sure that Steve Callahan knows time when you're going to be there, because they're now, especially that it's open, there's going to be people using the park, and it's good to kind of let him know ahead of time and work it
Yeah,
out.
I'll give him a heads up. If I do it, it's going to be like, if I do it, it'll be either super early or super late, so people aren't there.
I would definitely get their approval before you go and start digging.
Yeah. Okay. I'll ask him.
Digging in the sandbox, though. I mean, kids digging their.
I know I'm digging in the sandbox, but still, I get it. Yeah.
No, I agree.
I know. I appreciate the sentiment, Bill, with letting me know ahead of time so they get in trouble. So, thank you.
When we talked last time, it was slightly different circumstances with the park still closed.
That's true. Yeah. All right. So then I put this together because, there are a couple of things that we need volunteer help with, right? One is the portable bathroom enclosure, which we've talked about. The other one is, the covered bridge for the welcome area. That's one area where we were thinking about having a volunteer, right? And then I know that, Bill, you'd mentioned that Steve had asked about, help with staining and painting, which looks like that mostly got done. I just wasn't sure if that's something that we should, share with individuals that maybe, if they're interested in helping us on the road, if we need to maintain and stuff like that.
Can I stop you right there for the skate shack, Bill? Did that get completed? The staining.
I'm sorry, say that again.
On that little skate shack by the pond. We're talking about doing some repair and staining on that. I was asking Bill, did that get completed? I know you guys were working. I know Sandy did the garden down there. Did you finish that too? With that skate shack?
Yes.
Is that done?
I think I was done.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll mark it off on the list. Good. Thank you.
Who refinished the tables?
That was me. So
Nicely done.
I got one done. I got one more to go. So
Obviously, as I said, I haven't been in the park since, last fall. So I hadn't seen it, but the picture looks great. Thank you.
yeah, it came out good. It was tricky. I took it all apart, flipped the boards, power washed them, sanded them, filled in the cracks and any knots with wood filler, and then primed it and then painted it. The tricky
Like
part
a lot of work.
together because the holes didn't line up, so that took.
They never do.
Yeah, I think it's because I flipped the boards, but I had to because they were just so weathered on that one side. So
That explains a lot why it looks so much nicer. That
yeah,
you're not using the same.
yeah. Hopefully it'll last for years and years. Hopefully. So, and then I sanded and painted the metal base and the brackets and everything. So
Wow.
Wow.
yeah, it came out pretty good. So one more to go. I think it was worth saving them, rather than them going to the scrap.
Oh, definitely.
And then I know, so Sandy mentioned that there's, they're doing some weeding and gardening. So she said that she's going to be posting again for help with weeding, which I know you and Bill, you and her were the ones that mostly did it. So thank you for doing that. And then I just wanted to reference that, I found most of these activities on the Robertsfield Facebook group. When I went to the robertsfield.org website under volunteer activities, I didn't really see anything there. So I just wanted to let everybody know that, if you're interested in, anybody who's listening, interested in participating in volunteer activities, I would say the best place is to check out the Facebook group. And I guess, is that where, Bill, the Friends of Robertsfield is posting most of the volunteer activities? would you say?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right. Okay.
Real quick, you referenced Steve wanting help with a staining project, and the staining project is to stain the fence. So the town painter stained all of the wooden structures on the inside of the playground, including the shade structure, the main kiosk, and the entryway.
Okay.
Steve Callahan at some point in the future is going to want to stain the fence front and back. So he's looking for volunteers to help to do that.
The one up on the berm?
Wait a minute, I'm confused. That's a metal fence. What
Are you talking about the one up on the berm?
Yeah.
The wooden
Up on
fence
the berm. Yeah.
behind the playground.
Got it.
Separates the abutters, Barry.
Yeah, okay.
Does he have a timeline frame on that or yet or no? Or is he looking for us to kind of help organize that?
No, he didn't have a timeline.
Okay.
But I'll let you know when if he says or tells me, or you can ask him.
Okay. Yeah, I can. I'll include it in my questions that I send over to him. See what he says. Any other volunteer activities, I guess, that the friends are doing that you want to call out, at least in the setting?
Not at this time. I know that there's ongoing weeding and stuff that needs to happen on the corner garden on Pollinator Park. But other than that, we're pretty wrapped up right now.
All right. Perfect. All right. Okay, so that brings us to the reopening of the park, which happened recently. And I just wanted to share that, there's some guidelines, just again, overall for the public so they're aware.
Can I say that my personal favorite guideline that I just read was that you are required to seek an alternate playground if it's crowded. So you can't decide to go home. You have to go seek an alternate playground if it's too crowded.
It is kind of funny. It doesn't say just go home, but yeah.
No, it says you are required to seek an alternate playground.
Yeah.
Or your kid. I mean, I guess that's all the kids speaking, through that sign that you're required to bring them somewhere else. But
right. Yeah, I mean, I've been to the playground since this. I think, for the most part, people are doing pretty good. Some people are wearing masks, some people aren't. I know it does say that, wear a mask where you're not able to social distance. So, the park is pretty big and people have been kind of trying to stay, segregated and away from each other. But I just asked, those individuals who do go to make sure, if you're not able to maintain healthy, safe distances, to please, bring your mask. And I know it's tough with children, trust me. I mean, I was down there myself with my daughter when we were putting the picnic table together, and we were wearing our masks when anybody came near us. So it's tricky, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
I guess I'm surprised that it says, if social distancing can't be maintained, you're in an enclosed, fenced-in area with children, and children don't ask before they run within 6 feet of you.
Yeah, I know.
And you can't control them. And I'm actually surprised that it doesn't just require masks, because that's.
I think it's, the Mass Department of Public Health probably, when they were thinking about this, maybe decided, well, we got to have a give and take, and that's one of the gives probably, right? And the one thing I would say, again, and I'll ask Steve about the plan for, maintaining the, park's cleanliness and all that as it relates to this. But I was wondering, have we thought about, and this may be crazy, but, having a kiosk or some sort of stand with hand sanitizer that we can provide? Has that
I think you're going to have a problem with hand sanitizer sitting out in the sun. I've seen hand sanitizer. There's been thing about hand sanitizer exploding in cars when it gets hot.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if we made a nice little enclosed box shade structure for the hand sanitizer.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you'd also have the risk of hand sanitizer being a toxic substance to small children.
I don't think that's really a problem. You look at someplace like Parley Farm with their petting zoo, or Great Brook Farm, and they have hand sanitizer dispensers.
I mean, the reason I mentioned is because the sign here says, please use hand sanitizer before and after playground use, which obviously people can bring their own, but if they don't, I think it would be something that maybe we could think about. I don't know. I could ask Steve and see if it's something that the DPW could put together. I don't know.
It should be a town supplied thing since it's a Board of Health thing.
Yeah.
That's what I would think.
And
Yeah, if they can supply something that's designed for outdoor use, I support it.
so what I've learned is that the ultimate decider on this is going to be the Board of Health. So not only with the sanitizer thing, that would be something that you want to pose that question to them, but also if anybody has any questions about exceptions, I've seen a lot of questions posted about kids that may not be physically able to wear masks, things like that, and people looking for exceptions. People need to contact the Chelmsford Board of Health to ask them about those things.
Right. That's good advice. All right. Anybody have any other additional comments or questions on the opening of the park and the guidelines?
I think we've got enough to keep ourselves busy for a while.
What's that, Mary?
I think we've got enough to keep ourselves busy.
I think we do too. I do. And that moves us on to the ending of the meeting. So really just kind of talking about, next time we want to get together and what we want to cover. So I think we have, again, we covered a lot today. We made a lot of progress on the survey, which I think is where we spent the majority of our time, which is good because it's important. So we know what we're going to do there. Bill, you're going to work on that and kind of shoot that back to us to decide and agree on at the next meeting. Barry, I know you're going to be working a lot on the drafting of the site plan for the welcome area. So everybody's kind of, Dell, you're working on the grant stuff. We got a lot to do. When, I guess realistically, when do you all feel like we need to meet again? I know, Barry, your work's going to take quite a bit of time. Are we thinking, mid-late July or early August? What are
I
your?
think we touch base in a month and see where things are at with the playground as things open up. Other issues might arise. I think once a month might be the right thing.
I think end of July would be, does that sound about right, Elizabeth, to you? End of July? We're a little over halfway through June.
Yeah. The one say, so I'm on vacation the third week in July, so I'm on vacation till the 19th. So after that, I'm pretty open. So maybe
The week of the 20th, somewhere.
week of the 20th. Does that sound pretty good to everybody? The week of the 20th?
That would be better. There's a Jewish day of mourning in the final week of July that I'd prefer not to have a meeting.
Yep. So I'll shoot for the week of the 20th. Probably same thing, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7:00. I'll shoot a note over to Dan at Chelsea Media or Pete and see what's available and what we can do. But hopefully by then, Barry, you'll have some interesting things to show us for new designs, which would be.
Oh, I hope I will.
Yeah, I know, it's exciting. It's really great. And thank you, Bill. Great job working on the signage and everything. I think that came out really good. So, and we'll, either have the signage in or at least ready to be put in so we can talk about that. So, but that's great. I appreciate everything everyone's doing. Does anybody have anything else before we end? And does someone want to, I guess, make a motion to end?
I'll make a motion to end.
And I will second that.
right.
I guess the only thing is, can you send out a list of what sort of action items were coming out of here? So,
Yeah, I can do that. Yep.
That
I'll
would-
recap everything in an email and I'll send you the final version of the presentation so you have that.
that'd be great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, stay healthy.
Okay,
everyone.
vote. Got to call a vote.
Oh,
Oh,
What's that?
All, Marcus, you say all in favor of
oh,
adjournment?
sorry. All in favor of adjourning?
aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Del, for keeping me straight.
All right.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
All right. Hey, Pete,
All right.
I just stopped recording.
Okay. And we'll see what we got. I'm sure I know there's not the beginning, so.
That's okay. We did the best we could. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
And what was that date again?
We're thinking sometime the week of the 20th. It's either
Okay, so you could just send me
Tuesday,
the-
Wednesday, or Thursday. So I'll try to reach out to you, the week before.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Pete.
Have a good night.
You too.